everybody, if you're watching this video, please be sure, well, first of all, thank you. And please be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Hey everybody, so happy Tuesday. I'm so happy I don't have to work today. And of course, because I don't have to work, this would be the day that like the internet surrounding my apartment goes out and they have to do an emergency fix. Anyway, so I want to get on here and talk about Kamala's Harris's pick for Vice President, Tim Walz. Let me tell y'all something. I am so pleased. I was not going to be here for Josh Shapiro. I was going to tell you that. And just as sure as I've told you before that I am just not having it with Donald Trump, and my vote is intentionally to make sure he does not get in office, because he has already shown us what the fuck he's willing to do to harm African Americans. The Charlottesville incident, saying that there was good people on both sides and also the old fuck shit. But let me tell you why I am very pleased with the approach to Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota. Number one, Tim Walz is a much better choice just on an energy level. When I looked up Josh Shapiro and stuff like that, and they were like, oh, she needs to pick him from a strategic point of view, because that means with the Electoral College, she'll have the swing state, whatever. Well, she could have picked anybody from different swing states. But my thing is, there's no guarantee that simply because people in a state election, like for governor, particularly when it's close, will automatically give their votes to that particular person that was their governor. That's number one. Number two, I could tell by just looking at that white man, he was not the kind who was going to be taking orders and coming in second in command to a black woman. That was going to get under his skin. And we all know that men have a problem with doing that with women anyway, but certainly white men when it comes specifically to black women. Okay? Now, Tim Walz is your average looking, white guy. He's from the Midwest. Although if you told me he was from Georgia, I believe that too. Comes from a very poor working class background. Went to state schools, not to the Ivy Leagues. He is somebody who made it legal and made it a codified law to ensure that all kids in the state of Minnesota could have free breakfast and free lunches, regardless of income throughout the state. So reapportioning state resources to ensure that everybody is fed, particularly for those 2 meals of the day where kids are in school, which also helps focus. Shout out to the Black Panthers who started the free breakfast program, and shout out to Adam Clayton Powell for helping making it a law. Adam Clayton Powell Jr., the first black congressperson from New York. So with that, he's done that. He is, pro-decision for women's bodies. And I say it that way because when people say pro-life, I think that's some bullshit. First of all, a child has not formed at the first trimester. It has not. It has begun, but it is not formed. That's why you can't have abortions later, and quite frankly, it's dangerous. So there are times when you have to do that. Nevertheless, it is a woman's right to carry a child to term or not, to choose to have a baby or not. And I appreciate him codifying that within state law. Okay? And I say the thing about him having a working class background, it's because people like JD Vance, who have written, has written this book called The Hillbilly Elegy, and, basically the death of it. He's somebody who, yes, went into venture capitalism, and trust me, growing up in a working class environment, I totally understand how people want to make more money. I'm not going to even argue that. But that's not the point. That venture capitalism is when people often will put money into different rising businesses, that businesses who have not been necessarily cleared for the greater good, just simply to make money, and then they bring money around each other, so on and so forth, and cycle it back in within the same 1%. So venture capitalism is some fuck shit. It gives rich people more money to do fuck shit with. Okay? And him having an Indian wife don't mean a goddamn thing to me. Okay? It doesn't mean shit to me. And damn sure not him with brown kids, and then he's having an interview with them regular two white podcasters, and it's telling the story. Well, you know, my son who's 7, he's into that Pokemon phase. We all ever into Pokemon phase? And they were like, well, yeah, but a lot of kids are. And he was like, yeah, I'm on the phone with Trump, and I told him just to shut the hell up. And I was like, first of all, I wasn't even expecting that story to go in that direction. I thought he was about to give some kind of family story about kids and how goofy they could be. And that's what you told people, to shut the hell up. Your 7-year-old? Don't get me wrong. Okay, now, I'm sure parents have shortcomings all the time. Or you go, shut your ass down or something. You know, whatever. I'm not talking about that. But I am talking about, one, talking to your kid like that. Because if he said it that casually, knowing the kind of office he's running for, that is probably the watered down version of how he talks to his children. Not to mention his wife looks scared. Just saying. Okay? And him trying to do, basically Trump trying to pull in what I think is trying to be perceived as the poor white vote. And yes, there are plenty of poor white people who vote against their interest. And it's known as the psychological wage. Shout out to W.B. Du Bois, who wrote about this in Black Reconstruction, where he said white people have consistently voted against their interests in the name of white supremacy, essentially. That they get this sort of psychological wage of superiority over black people that keeps them from voting and coming together as an economic collective to overthrow capitalist policies that have exploited them as well. Still true. And then there are some, like the Tim Walz of the world, who grow up poor, working class, who was a veteran, and many people who joined the military. Some people do that because they're just grown cold to United States. And then there are plenty of others who also join. And I'm not saying this is why he joined, but I know there are others who join just because they have to make a living. And veterans do not get treated fairly in this country. So for somebody like him, who's a former vet, who becomes a public school teacher, who taught on an indigenous reservation as well. And I don't want to give it like the white savior thing, but what I'm saying is experiences that have led to policy changes. And he's somebody who has increased funding for public education, which is the way I think it should be. He has decreased tuition in the state of Minnesota by making sure if you go to an in-state school, your tuition and fees are covered if your family makes less than $80,000 a year. And that to me is a big deal. Anybody who's ever struggled to pay a college tuition bill, that's a big deal. And those kind of people making those kind of policies larger, I think is an incredible move. And that honestly seems like a much better pick for the majority of people across this country, whether they realize it or not. Because I personally am not aspiring to be an Ivy League elitist who tries to use, my upbringing as a working class person and then manipulate it into I understand and then only keeping the 1%. And I am not under any illusion, okay? I know Kamala and Tim Walz. These are big time politicians. I am no fool. But what I'm not here for is that authoritarianism. Because the next thing they need to make on their list is the fucking police brutality. And I know y'all seen that clip of Kamala Harris talking about, well, there's a myth that African Americans don't want policing in their neighborhoods. No, they want policing that, protects people, so on and so forth, instead of locking people up for the sake of it. Which is true. We also want to fix to the conditions that lead people to steal and that kind of thing. However, this is the best choice. And I'm so glad. And honestly, I was thinking to myself, she probably picked somebody she thought she could work with. Not just simply the swing vote for a state. There are plenty of swing states, and not plenty, but enough. The Wisconsin, Pennsylvanias, North Carolinas, Ohio's, which is what Trump tried to pull. Georgia even now is a swing state. Can y'all believe that? I never thought I'd see today. But just that in and of itself, to me, is a sign of what she wants this campaign to represent. Not to mention, she's only had 2 weeks to figure this shit out. We coming up on the 3rd week when we found this out. Okay, so her trying to figure this out is no easy task. Eric Holder, the former U.S. Attorney General, black man, did her vetting for her. And I'm here for it. Certainly with a rush candidacy and all these people getting on the internet. I'm a black woman. This is why I'm not voting for Kamala Harris. I have no problem with people articulating their political point of view. And the thing is, it's not like, oh, I'm so gung-ho, Kamala, she ain't never made... I already told you I have feel about that truancy shit, okay? Her inability to really articulate issues around reparations, or just outright disagree with it. So I'm not sitting up here under some illusion, but some of y'all think it's smart to consistently be contrarian to a black person when they are running for office, just to demonstrate that you're not like the other black people. Your self-hatred is showing itself, because none of these people seem to have substantive policy issues. And your alternative is whom? Now, some of these people said their alternative was, hey, Cornel West and Melina Abdullah, even though I ain't checking for either one of them, who have had no experience in politics. And the bottom line is, when you are dealing with Capitol Hill, you need to have some allies in the House of Reps and the Senate. You need to know some people, because that's how all that shit works. And have experience, negotiating and playing, these kind of things in politics. But that's why I like Tim Walz's background, because it's opposite of the lawyer, but it's also shown his ability to be not only elected to something, but to be good at it, to be a straight shooter. I love people that are like, fuck it. When he was like, there was only 24 people in my graduating class, and 12 of them were my cousins. I said, you know what? Go off. And he was like, I don't know what JD Vance is describing. I'm here for it. I'm here for it. And this kind of presumption that black people just voting for her because she's black. I got on here and told y'all I was going to vote for Joe Biden, and they told me he was dead that morning if it meant not voting for Trump. I think we need to understand that it is energizing, certainly, to many people. It's not like black people came and just started screaming when Tim Scott was, and his big guns was running for the Republican nomination for presidency. It's all black people that run, we've seen over and over again, they do not always win, nor do they get backing. But I do think that there's something that energizes people when they see themselves in candidates, much like the way Barack Obama was able to run that 2008 campaign, so on and so forth. And y'all know I've gone in on him plenty of times. But to see a black woman, and yes, she is black. I'm not even going into that with people. Every time Kamala has talked about black people, it's always like we, us. When I was at Howard, I'm black. I've been black my whole life. I'm going to die black. When people make those kind of statements, and statements long before they were president, no. You have an African-American experience based on the fact that you're not white and the fact that your skin is brown. And the fact that her Indian mother explained that to her. The fact that her Indian mother and Kamala, who grew up in Oakland, like, y'all, we got to cut this out. We got to cut this fuck shit out. A Howard University graduate and an AKA. So all the black things. Like, get the fuck out of here. And, Sean Fain, who is the president of the United Auto Workers, came out for Kamala Harris, gave the United Auto Workers endorsement for her presidency. And he discussed how she was on the front line when they were picketing for higher wages. And I appreciate that. And Sean Fain, let me tell you something. That's another white person who, he has clearly white privilege. Because when he had those auto workers on strike, and he was quoting Malcolm X, I said, only a white man can get away with that. You let a black man start doing that, he's going to be guilty by association. They would have blown up his house and everything else. But nevertheless, he gave his endorsement for Kamala Harris and cited these instances before Tim Walz came along. Anyway, but we'll discuss that some other time. But while I'm on it, AKAs, ACAs, pink and green, people who think they own the primary color wheel, who have license over Roy G. Biv, come to the front. Come to the front. And no, I ain't talking about all the big Divine Nine Greek organizations that got together in a statement, because we all know that's just the people who've been voted to be in charge. Let me tell y'all something. I would say I'm gonna tread lightly, but I don't give a fuck, because I've never been into these sorority things. You can't find nobody nowhere to say, oh, Salah rushed, or oh, Salah applied. I never wanted to be a part. And I've told y'all before, I don't believe in the classism and elitism. I feel like it promotes in the African American community, because I think it's the last thing we need. And I think there was a time with these organizations that were created to make sure black people would always have a sense of community where they went, but only the best of the best could get in. I think that time has passed. because it's clearly about membership and money. You letting 200 people go over on the line, and you get in just because your mama is AKA and stuff like that. It just really takes away from it. And not to mention, Kamala is not paper. And by paper, I mean having a mother that was in there so she could be, legacy and therefore get in. So that represents something different to me. But the way y'all are going in on people who are walking around in pearls and pink and green because they've seen her dress like that, y'all do not own pearls as a class statement anyway, because that was a thing at Spelman. That is very much within the kind of dressing up at a HBCU for black women. I can't speak for other HBCUs. I have seen that approach, but I know certainly at Spelman College that was a thing, and people, when I wore my pearls and stuff like that, even at UCLA, my my professors, I had a black woman professor, and she would kind of laugh. She was like, "Yeah, it's like you always wear your pearls. You're always very it's very Southern of you." Like I knew what she was getting at, but y'all going in on people on the internet for taking pictures and trying to cosplay Kamala, other black women, not like white people in blackface or some shit like that, is really, it's not a good look. It's not. And I don't know this Coach D woman and what she stands for. All I saw was a bunch of people going in on her, and I was just like, ooh, why are they getting so mad? Ooh. I get that y'all didn't like the fact that she may have appeared like an AKA, but for her to then take the picture down and say, and then y'all are wondering how y'all can mobilize support, that's not the way you deliver those kind of messages. It's not. And quite frankly, it's not as sacred and individualistic as it once was. She's not running for the president of Alpha Kappa Alpha. Okay? She's not running for the CEO of that organization. COO, whatever the hell y'all call it. The president. She's running for the president of the United States. And if y'all really want to mobilize support, that fake bougie bullshit y'all try to pull when y'all broke as hell or haven't paid y'all's membership dues in years because either y'all mad at the sorority, can't afford it, or you decided you wanted to buy a Telfair bag instead, like whatever the fuck it is, miss me with the bullshit. Okay? Howard University and all the alums, because I feel like it's an honor to be able to graduate from a top HBCU, just because of so much pride and legacy and tradition that black people don't always have. And that's why you find that African Americans have so often have this emotional attachment to their HBCU, because it's the first and last time many of us will, not all of us, but many of us will have this opportunity in education to be around other smart, accomplished, and accomplishing African Americans and be taught by them. That doesn't happen for us every day. We have to go back out into these worlds. So where we are not the majority and where we're deemed as the exception and then often penalized for being smarter and better at a particular job. And so, I mean, even the Howard people aren't reacting that way. And so I think there is an admiration in it. I also think the people who know not to do that, but y'all don't own that shit. You don't own it. And it's just a bad look, because right now we are, as far as I'm concerned, we're in a state of emergency. And somebody wrote in my comments, well, tell me what Kamala Harris has done. I was like, first of all, she's capped insulin at $35 federally. And maybe y'all don't, I find it very hard to believe, even with the few subscribers to the channel that I have, that as African Americans, y'all don't know somebody in your family with diabetes and how significant insulin is and how difficult it is to pay for it and how my grandfather had difficulties paying for it. So you know what, that means something to me. Her creating other federal loopholes purposely to ensure easy, safe access, affordable access to abortion care, and to ensure that black women are protected throughout carrying children. So while you talking about childless cat ladies and all that other bullshit, she's the one making provisions to ensure we can bring our children into this world safely. I don't have any kids either. I can sit here and say, well, that ain't my fucking problem. And so could she. Because quite frankly, the line is a lot shorter. She wanted to become a conservative Republican talking head as a black woman. And she didn't do that. And so I'm going to need some of y'all to really, like, actually read about it. Like, because if you say, hey, You know, this is a third party candidate. This is Jill Stein that I checked for, Cornel West that I was checking for, regardless of how I feel about those campaigns that are just not going to happen. I could rock with that because then that gives me something to engage with. But some of y'all are just so hard trying to prove, well, she ain't do this, she ain't do that. Y'all ain't looked up what she's done. They cleaning up stuff still from COVID. These groceries too goddamn high, and they better take them prices down immediately. And I will hold her accountable. But what the fuck I don't want is white people around this country feeling like they can hang us from trees without consequences. And this is what I'm talking about. And yes, quite frankly, I do think it will be different with a woman in office if we can get her in there. Because, you know, as my psychoanalyst pointed out to me when we were talking, he was like, well, is there a difference? Do you think there'd be a difference with a woman? I was like, well, you know, people just have that neoliberal structure. They just move in like Barack Obama would move in as a black person. Once in a while, say something that dealt with black issues, whatever. The symbolic nature. And he was like, but you don't think it would be different as a woman? I said, well, honestly, I think a woman will typically be more receptive to certain things. Like, I don't think a woman will see a hungry child on the street or a child walking on the street without shoes or barely clothed and that not affect them to the point where they have to enact policy. I think women respond to that differently. I certainly do. And I'm not a mother. And he was like, of course it will. And that's one of the differences. And he's saying this as somebody who studied human beings, right? Who counsels human beings. And so that is something to think about. And who better, you know, in this moment than a black woman? Y'all know we ain't gonna hear the end of it, HU, but Hampton, y'all really ain't gonna hear the end of it. Anyway, but that's my take on the Tim Walz thing, and I'm gonna watch the rally once my internet comes back on and works accordingly. I know y'all like, probably, how are you recording this? Well, it's because I can record QuickTime without the access to the internet, and I have to upload it later. But anyway, those are just my thoughts. Once again, please put what you think about this election, about the choices, down in the comments. I would just appreciate it, you know, if people, you know, hey, put a link. This is my source. This is what I don't like. Because the stuff, even the bullshit that's coming out about how Doug, Kamala's husband, cheated on his first wife, and that's what led to their divorce. Why is that news? We talking about, one, his first wife. Two, I believe it. Okay? Three, what the fuck that got to do with her? She is very much after the fact. His kids are grown. His kids are grown fucking adults. Okay? Like, so I'm just making a point. Like, regardless, Trump, the way he talks about black people, to black people, and the way he throws these coons up in our face, like he was doing at that Atlanta rally, is fucking insulting to my intelligence. And it's racist. And the black MAGA, stand up, stand up. And white people up there clapping and laughing. Y'all are whole fucking clowns for being there. Period. And Meg Thee Stallion is a goddamn clown too. Why are you shaking it? Kamala, you ain't got to pander to us like that. So while we on it, why y'all trying to act like, you know, she just gonna hurt? We do not need you shaking your ass in the name of getting her elected. First of all, I don't even think Meg Thee Stallion is talented like that. I don't dislike her. Well, no, I don't like her, but I stand with her in terms of that guy that shot her and shit like that and all that shit she went through, because I believe in protecting victims of domestic violence and making sure they have justice. Period. Hard stop. But I personally find her need to perpetually shake her ass like you can't even hear her lyric. It comes off to me as like desperate for attention, in a way that even though somebody like Cardi B does it, I also feel like that's who the fuck Cardi is. I still feel like Meg is just doing a lot of ghetto, like hood stripper stuff, and it's just like, and people act like it's talent. I mean, granted, you know, to each his own, but please don't come to any other rallies. And Kamala, let that be a lesson. You don't have her no more. She don't know how to act. All right. Anyway, I'll talk to y'all soon. And make sure you just stay respectful in the comments. And I'm glad to hear what other people think. Bye.